Hi guys, my name is Phil and welcome to PhilDoes3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the US, 12 PM in Australia and 1 AM in the UK. Let's open up Max and load up the file we were working on yesterday. Hope you guys are well. I want to shout out a thank you again to Ray and Sage for following my Twitch channel yesterday. I always appreciate it every time you guys follow the channel, so thank you. We're going to do some texturing on those banister supports, I think, today. We want to create 3 or 4 different versions, texture versions, so that we can start repeating them around the outside. Just making sure my mic isn't muted. Everything looks good. Again, remember guys, if you have any questions for me or anything you're not sure about what I'm doing or 3D in general or your artwork, feel free to pop into chat and tell me. If you just want to pop in and say hello, that's cool. If you just want to watch, then that's completely fine as well. Max is just finishing uploading our file here. Okay. Let's go full screen so we can get a better look at it. So we've finished texturing up the top banister railings here. We created a few different versions so that we could repeat them around the outside. We've still got to do the supports here and these large columns, but I think we'll work on the supports today. I think it's probably the best way to go. And we'll do that by taking it into Mari and texturing it up there. Now I did start this texture yesterday on these lower supports, but looking at them now, I'm just going to select that so Max has something to lock onto. When I rotate the viewport, that way it won't move around. I don't really like that texture I've chosen. I'm going to try a different texture. The work we did yesterday probably won't be wasted because we could probably keep a lot of the dirt marks on it, but we just want to swap out the base texture, I think. I think I want to make it more in line with the banister color here. My original thought was to pick up on the color that ran around the border of the center of the terrace dome, but now I'm thinking it may be better if we pick up some of the blue and the brown from the banister railings to help tie them together, and then we can look at using something perhaps different for these columns, although I may go with that texture there. We'll see how we go. So we've already exported that object and started working on it in Mari, so we'll jump into Mari and we'll continue working on that texture there, I think. All right, it is this one here. We'll just open that up. Again, that's the great thing about Mari and their project workflow. You can see every project you've worked on. It's easy to reopen it and then everything will be back to where you were. I know Mudbox has a similar feature, I think, as well with their thumbnails. And just wait for it to load up. Okay. Now, like I said, I don't really like this texture. I want to swap it out, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start turning off layers to find the initial underlying texture. No, they're the dirt layers. So I'm just looking for that underlying colored texture that we see there. Nope. Nope. We've got to be getting close. Nope. 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 It'll be my luck, it'll be the one from the top. That's the one. That was the original texture we started with. And I think I may replace that one too. So I think that was layer 2. All right. So we're back to the original grey texture we started with when we did the export from Max. Apart from the dirt layers that we added on the top of it, they're still active. Most of them anyway. Just checking what these ones are. Okay. And this one, I just want to double check that one. Okay, all right, good. So now we're back to the original grey texture with just the dirt layers attached, layered over the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer down here below that dirt layer, or all those dirt layers. I'm going to pull in 3 or 4 new texture maps from the same set that I was working with yesterday. They're just some that I worked on in Photoshop. It's these ones here. We'll see if we can use any of these for these supports. Alright, and they'll be right at the bottom of the stack because they're the last thing we pulled in. So we're on a new layer. We've removed the base texture layer here that we used yesterday, and we're going to replace it with something else. We've kept all of our dirt texture maps on top though. So let's pull in, let's see what this one looks like. Alright, I'm going to, again, because this is an angled piece of geometry, I don't want to paint it flat on like that because I'll get stretching happening here underneath. I want to rotate the model until I'm looking at around the center of it, so the center of it's flat. A bit like that. I'm going to scale it up until it fits just within the viewport. I'm going to scale my texture down until it just covers the model. And we'll may move it over a bit as well. We'll paint that in. And remember, this is being painted in underneath of all those dirt layers we painted on top yesterday when we were working with the original texture. Again, I'm going to press the Alt key to bake it down. Alright. Now I'm going to turn on projection mask here. We're going to put into my projects tab and turn on masking. I'm going to move it to the side view here. Maybe just off center like that, so it's angled slightly forward. Again, I'm not scaling my... I'm going to scale it up so it just fits in the viewport again. But try not to scale the model or the texture at this stage. I'll move that over slightly. And because these are all project based in Mari, it's easy for us to swap out the textures and try a few different things until we find something we really like. It's not always, it's often the case that the first thing texture you use you may not like, so swapping it out is always good, or handy to be able to do that easily anyway. Now, because masking is on, I'm not going to be painting over the front of the model. I'm only doing these side pieces here. Let's bake that down with the Alt key. Swing it around to the other side. And again, I'm just going to angle my texture a bit because the model's angled slightly. Remember, it's always important to angle your texture to follow the angle of the model. We'll get these little pieces down here. These bits in here. And this bit just here. Okay, let's bake that down. Let's do the top piece as well. For that, I'm going to angle it back like that. Again, I'm going to rotate my texture around. We'll just paint that in. These pieces, you probably won't see this top piece because it's butting up against the bottom of the banister rail. And the back piece as well, which we will paint up, but again, you won't probably see it because it will be against the wall of the bottom of the terrace itself. So we'll bake it down with the Alt key, and again, to rotate the model in Mari, I just hold down the Alt key and the left mouse button. Let's angle it slightly forward like that, and again rotate my texture around. Paint it in. Paint that down. Because we've got masking turned on, we don't really have to worry about the being super careful at these edges. Now I'm going to have to move my model up, but before I do that I've got to bake it, because if I don't bake it and I move the model, it's going to move the texture because it's not actually assigned like I've been saying to the actual geometry. So I'll just finish painting these bits in here. Bake it down. And now I can move my model up and finish that little corner off just there. Okay. Let's go back into our project tab and turn off masking. And it looks like there might be a little bit just down here in this corner that I've forgotten to paint, or missed when I did the paint. So I'm going to turn masking back on. Yes, okay, thank you very much. Windows, you're getting in my way. I'm going to turn masking back on. Again, I'm going to rotate my texture to match the model. I'll do that again by holding down the Control key and the left mouse button. So masking is switched back on. I'm just going to angle the model around so I can see that those two little corners down there. Now, I see the problem here. I obviously had the model angled like that when I painted it in. That was so that the masking was taking full effect. But to do it now, to get into those corners, I have to angle the model back so that masking is not taking effect. So that's really not going to help me. So instead I'm going to jump into the UV viewport. I'm going to zoom in and look for that part in the model. It's these two pieces here. So instead of painting in 3D in the model because it's very difficult to get in there and have it masked. I'm going to do it in the UV viewport. So I'm just going to zoom in till I can see those two pieces. I'm going to zoom my texture map in to match the scale of the underlying texture. And I'm just going to paint that in. And bake it down. Jump back into my 3D viewport, and now you can see that we textured it up without actually having to work with really fiddly little spots like that. Looks like the same thing has happened just here on these two pieces. So we're going to jump again back into the UV viewport. I'm going to look for those two pieces that look like they've stretched a little bit. Let's see here. It's these two pieces just here. Again, I'm going to zoom in a bit. Again, I'm going to scale up my texture a bit more. I'm just going to overpaint these two areas here. Bake it down. Always remember, even in the UV viewport here, to bake it down. Otherwise, you might have trouble when you move. Again, when you move the UV layout, it will move your UV texture around as well. So Alt key to bake it down, and then jump back into our 3D view. And that's fixed those two small areas down there. Let's turn masking off. I'm going to export this texture. So I'm going to go into the channels here and right click and go export flattened, export everything flattened. You have the option of exporting everything in its own individual layer if you prefer, like Photoshop, but we don't need that at this stage. I'm just going to export flattened. I'm going to call this support redone.tga. So let's export that. And also let's just save our project here. And remember, we've still got our original texture there, so if we ever decide we wanted to go back to it, we can easily turn it on. So let's jump into Max here and pull in a bit on the model. Move it over a bit. Let's open up our material editor. And I'm going to swap out this support.tga for the support redone, which is this one here. Okay. And let's have a look at that. I prefer the more of the blue that's picking up from the banister, but I don't like the fact that it's quite so dark. Now, there are a few ways you can fix that. You could go into Mari and put an adjustment on the layer stack, but I'm going to work in Photoshop because I know a lot of you guys work in Photoshop, so we'll do it that way. I use Photoshop a lot myself, so for painting up textures or doing color correction. Let's open up that support redone.tga that we exported from Mari. It's in our rework folder. Just here. Now, anytime you're working with something like this and you think to yourself, geez, I like it, but it just looks odd because it looks a bit dark. Generally, the best way to fix that will be to throw our levels on it in Photoshop. So that's what we're going to try doing now. So we have our texture here. You can actually go image adjustment and levels if you prefer. The better way to do it though is you can't see it here, but let me just pull that in. In your adjustments tab here, you have a levels command, and that will actually add a layer above your image for you to work on. That way you can always turn it off if you don't like it. So it's exactly the same as doing the adjustment levels, but it's on its own layer that can easily be turned on and off. Whereas doing it this way with the levels command, once it's done, it's done. You can't, unless you go undo, it's hard to remove it. So I'm just going to pull in on that levels a bit and lighten it up. I'm going to save out as a new file name .tga, and we're going to call it support redone 2. Uh, 24-bit is fine. It's hey Ray, what the hell is that? That was the texture map for our lower piece here. I decided the color that we used yesterday I didn't like. I didn't like the texture itself. So basically what we've just done is we've jumped into Mari and turned off that reddy texture that we were using, and I've replaced it with a darker looking texture. Like I said, if we want to go back, we can just turn that layer on and turn this one off. We're still keeping all of the work we did with the dirt layers and things. We just added a new layer and replaced the underlying texture. Because I didn't think it, I was originally wanting to pick up that color, but now I'm thinking I want to pick up more of this color. So, and I was just looking at it thinking it was looking a bit too dark. So I've gone into Photoshop, opened up the texture map and just threw a levels on top of it to lighten it up a bit. So we're going to pull that in now into our new texture into Max. So it's redone version 2 here. And that just helped to lighten it up and make it blend in a bit better. It was just a bit too dark, and just throwing a levels command in Photoshop on it helps to bring it together a bit more. So that's our one version of that texture. We're going to have to create probably 1, 2, 3, 4. We really should do another 5 versions, because I'm just looking at how when we do a render on this, how many we will see in frame at the same time. That on an angle that you're really going to notice it, and it's probably going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe 5. We may have to do another 5 versions, but such a small piece of geometry, it won't take long to texture them up. So that's what it is. We're still working on this lower piece here, right? Let's create a second version for here. So let's jump back into Mari. Let me scale my texture back a bit. So yeah, instead of going with that terracotta and grey looking texture, we've gone with more of a blue tint to it to match the banister railings. So this is our first version. Let's remove the dirt layers on this completely, because we want to redo them so it's not completely the same layer, dirt layers. So I'm just going to turn all those off. Now I want to swap out this base texture as well. We don't want that to be the same, so I'm going to turn that off. Now we're back to our original grey that we started with when we did the initial export from Max. I'm going to jump up to the top, throw down a new layer, and now I know everything from here up is going to be new. So it'll be the second version, and we'll keep doing it that way for the other 3 versions. So we could use the same texture again and just paint it in a different spot on the model, but I created a couple of versions of this, so let's grab another one that's completely different. Let's go with this one here. I went into Photoshop. I made sure that the colors were matching, so I had that same blue tint to it, but I just varied up the texture a bit more. And I actually created a 3rd version as well that we can use. It's a little bit different. We'll probably try and stick to just these 2. Oh, okay. Cool. So you're watching me on your second monitor. Okay. And looking at reference videos for backflip. Yeah, cool. I know one of the guys I used to work with, an animator, used to, in the 3D software package, load up the video file and animate that way as well. So he scrubs through the animation with the timeline, and would match his animation with the video in the background of the viewport. Like I know in Max you can load up a viewport background. I'm sure you can in most 3D programs. Yeah, so I used to scrub through the animation and animate to the video as it animated in the background. So I could sort of scrub through it that way and match it up. Just an option for you. It really depends on the video you're watching, but yeah. So again, let's scale our model up to just about fit the viewport. And again, because the model is angled in the middle, we can't paint flat on like that. We'll get stretching. We've got to angle it around, rotate it around, so that we're looking at the center of the model just there. Let's move that into position. Again, we're going to scale our texture map up to be, and rotate it around to match the model, and to be just covering the model itself. Again, we'll choose part of the texture that maybe looks interesting. Let's go with that yellow mark in the middle. We'll paint that in. The walking animation was easiest because I just got all and walk around the room for a bit. Yeah, he used to do that too. He had a video camera. He used to video himself doing the motion that he wanted to animate. I know we were working on a, he and I, for the studio at the time, were working on a what do they call it, a submission for a Mad Max game, and one of them was a get up animation. So he used to lie on the floor, video himself as he got up, and then that way he could animate it. It's just, they allowed him to see himself in the third person sort of thing instead of. It just helped him to animate the movement. Okay, we'll bake that down. No, it was a get-up animation where the character was shot, perhaps, and was lying flat on their back. So, and then they would get up from that flat laying position. So he'd animate himself putting his leg up and then getting his arms to his side and pushing himself up and standing up. That's what I mean by get up animation. And yeah, he videoed that so that he could play it back and watch the movements and animate that way. Let's jump into our project tab here and turn on edge masking. And again, we're going to rotate our model around like that. Again, we want the masking to take effect so we don't overpaint the front. And I'm just going to scale the texture back a little bit because when I rotated it, it made it a little smaller. So we want to keep consistency here. And I'm also going to rotate the texture around to match the direction of the model. Yeah, you're probably thinking about the yeah, I know that you're probably thinking about the last Mad Max game that was just released. That's not the one I'm talking about. I did not do any work on that one, but it is supposed to be a good game. I agree. I haven't played it, but I know some people said I've read some reviews where they liked it. So that's not the game I'm talking about, though. The game, actually, what we were working on was just a submission for the director of the guy that has the rights to the movie, an Australian guy, the director. He was thinking about making a game for it long ago. We're talking about probably 5 years ago. And the studio I worked for was put in a proposal to make the game for him. So that's what I was working on. Yeah, so not the last game though. That was released a few years ago. Well, yeah, that's not the one I worked on. But it is supposed to be a good game. on my website in the gallery section, there's a piece of concept artwork called Abandoned Refinery, I think it's called. That's some concept artwork I did for the Mad Max thing for the studio I worked at the time. So I was doing 3D environments and concept art for it. Let's rotate that back around that way. Get in these pieces here. Yeah, no, not the movie either. The movie, I didn't work on the movie either. No, I worked on a game a proposal for a video for the game, but not the game that was released recently or in the last couple of years. It was before that, when they were just thinking about when the director was just thinking about turning it into a game. Before he started making the last movie. There's been a lot of work like that, though. It's quite common that studios will do work for a pitch for a director, in this case, to get the rights to make the game. And that's what I was working on. The pitch phase. Let's rotate that around that way and rotate that texture around as well. I don't want that. Again, this is the top that you're not going to see, but so it doesn't really matter, I guess. I was just about to say that I probably wouldn't want that yellow mark in there if it was going to be seen because it's too similar to the front, but because this is the top and you're not going to see it, we're only doing it because it's easy and it's here, I'll use it. The movie was pretty cool. I did like what they did with the latest Mad Max movie. It was good. And they didn't use a lot of special effects in that movie either. A lot of it was just stunt work. So that's pretty impressive. And it was filmed here. It was filmed in Australia, so back that down. And we'll do this back section. Again, the back section, you're not going to see it because it's butting up against the wall of the garden terrace. But again, we'll do it just to keep it complete. You never know. You may want to knock one of them off, make it look like it's been a bit damaged, and then you would want to see the back anyway. So I remind you of a friend of yours in a way. Is my voice, the way I look. How do I remind you of your friend? Okay, let's break that down. I've noticed just a bit of stretching happening just here. He live streams and I like how he talks and still comments. Oh, cool. Well, like I said, it's important to talk to people in the chat, regardless of what you're doing, because the chat's an important part of streaming and of Twitch. So, and talking out loud helps me helps me think anyway. Oh, I don't want that color there. We'll bake that down. And you remember too, I also record all my videos locally and then put them on YouTube, so I keep talking for that reason as well, so that people that are watching my videos on YouTube aren't left with me sitting in silence constantly. I've also, again, I've noticed those two stretching marks happening just down here, so I'm going to jump into the UV viewport. And I know the two sections that I'd have to fix up, so it's going to be these two just here. And again, I'm going to scale up the texture to match the underlying texture a bit more. And just paint those out. Bake them down before you leave the UV viewport. Always remember to hit the Alt key. Bake it down. So let's fix those two areas there. Let's turn off masking now and jump back into our image manager. I'm just looking here and it looks like I may have a bit of stretching happening, so I think what I'll do is just matching up my underlying texture there with the new one. I'm just going to paint out some of the stretching I see happening here. I'll bake it down. And again, it looks like on the side here there's a bit of stretching too, so I'm going to turn projection back on again. Masking. Rotate my texture around and just paint that out. Bake it down. Alright, now let's turn projection masking off. Jump back into our image. Now let's throw down a new layer. And I'm going to grab dirt texture we can put over the top. Let's see what this one looks like. Whoa. Scale it back. Now again, this will be sitting, yeah, the top of this is the large part, so that's the top section. Just going to angle my model here. And find part of the texture I like. We're on a new layer and I'm just going to paint that in. I'm only worrying about the white of the texture here, so I'm not going to go down to the bottom. I'm only going to go to the top, paint in the top part. And let's change our layer style maybe to an add. And we're going to, I'm just going to move that and pull it right back. Like that. Let's throw down another layer. And let's grab another texture.